In my recent videos, I've mentioned my plans to upgrade from my old Logitech Silent Combo keyboard to a mechanical one. Well, the time has come and I finally pulled the trigger on a keyboard that strikes the perfect balance between price and performance. This is my review of the Dark Flash GD100. Before we dive in, I'd like to share a few quick disclaimers. First off, I am in no way a keyboard expert. I've dabbled in YouTube videos, but I'm merely a casual observer. So what I'll say might resonate to keyboard casuals like me, but true keyboard enthusiasts might scoff at my opinions. Next, I have to admit I wasn't really familiar with the Dark Flash brand before this purchase. However, I'm super thankful they exist because of how affordable this keyboard is and how well it performs relative to its price tag. Finally, I've been using this keyboard for a few weeks now, including typing out the scripts for my recent videos. So I'm not merely reviewing this keyboard without actually testing it out and understanding its quirks based on my typical typing usage. With all that said, let's get this video started with the spec list that matters to me personally, because I'm not gonna dive too deep into the specifics. The GD100 is a 100 key keyboard, often referred to as a 90% keyboard. It uses pre-looped K yellow switches and PBT keycaps. The board is hot swappable, so you can replace the switches and keycaps if you'd like. It's also a dual mode keyboard, functioning either wired or wirelessly with a USB dongle. I specifically chose this one because I'm used to having numpads on my keyboards. I also noticed that the smaller footprint of this keyboard compared to a full-sized one would be better for the limited space on my desk setup. Honestly, it was a toss-up between this and the GD87, a 10 keyless option from Dark Flash with a similar footprint. I would have been fine without the numpad on the GD87, but I noticed that its biggest drawback was the lack of volume controls, which is why I pulled the trigger on the GD100 instead. In terms of its layout, I did notice some drawbacks from the GD100 that might bother me, such as the placement of the function key and the arrow keys. The function key being on the right side instead of the left isn't a huge issue, I just needed to get used to it. The volume controls being on the right side also made some sense, as it was more convenient than having either the volume controls or the function keys on the opposite side. However, because the function key is the same size as the control key next to it, I often find myself accidentally pressing control instead. Regarding the arrow keys, I knew they would bother me in some way, but there is one issue that I did not anticipate. Because of how close the shift and up keys are, I often press both keys together, leading me to highlighting lines of text instead. To be honest, this was the most annoying part of the layout for me. Apart from that though, I was able to adapt and get used to it quickly. Plus, having the numpad while being able to use keys like page up and down, delete and print screen without having to press the function key is a positive in my book. Now let's talk about the switches, which is probably what most of you are here for. My only experience with mechanical switches before were the blue clicky switches from the Logitech G613 and a ClipTech keyboard. Honestly, both were just too loud for my taste and became quite unbearable at the end of their life cycle. That's why I opted for linear switches this time. I like how this keyboard feels to type on and the sound the switches make. The only downsides I've noticed are the sensitive linear switches and the sound of the keys that have stabilizers, especially the spacebar. The linear keys feel a bit too sensitive, which might be more about my typing technique and less about the keyboard itself. Even with other keyboards in the past, I tend to press the keys next to the keys I intend to press. At first, I noticed I was mispressing a lot of keys on the GD100, but as time went on, I guess it was just an adjustment period. Now, I mispress at a normal rate that I'm used to. So, no fault of the keyboard honestly, and I still love the typing and gaming experience it provides. The keys sound great, with a bit of that talky quality enthusiasts love. But that's just based on my limited experience with talky keyboards. The only issue I have is the rattling of the spacebar and the left shift key, which can honestly sound quite unsatisfying at times. I guess I could do something about these stabilizers, but I'm not at the stage of keyboard modding just yet. Speaking of modding, I might experiment with switching the switches out for tactile ones down the line just to see what I'm missing. I might even switch out the keycaps as well. Since we're on the topic, let me just talk about the color options Dark Flash offers for this keyboard. The one I have here, a black, grey and yellow option, is called the brown sugar colorway. There's also a beige, milky brown colorway and a blue, white, yellow one called Starry Blue. Honestly, I wanted that retro look with that milky and brown colorway, but the store was out of stock, so I ended up with this one instead. However, I think this colorway makes much more sense for my setup as it matches the darker black theme I have going on compared to the beige. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the connectivity and the battery life. To put it simply, I have no gripes with either. With the 2.5 GHz dongle, I don't notice any sort of lag whether typing or gaming. Would it have been better if it had Bluetooth? Yeah, maybe. But I have no issues with the dongle since it stays plugged in at all times. And even if I need to unplug it, I can still store it in a safe space under the keyboard's adjustable feet so I don't lose it. As for battery life, I haven't had to charge this keyboard once ever since I got it out of the box. I used to turn it off after every work or gaming session, but I've since stopped. I've noticed it will either go into sleep mode or power off after some time of inactivity, which is one of the reasons why the battery is still holding up strong. Dark Flash has advertised a 90-day battery life, so let's see how that goes because I've only been using this keyboard for a month or so. In summary, the Dark Flash GD100 is a budget-friendly 96% keyboard. For a price of 150 ringgit, you can't really go wrong, especially if you're a keyboard beginner like me. It offers a great typing and gaming experience, a pretty good sound, and just the right amount of bells and whistles for a no-nonsense everyday keyboard. It's also hot swappable too, in case you get the itch to mod it in the future. The only downsides that I'd look out for are the layout, which does take some getting used to, the less than perfect stabilizers, and if you're like me, the sensitivity of the linear switches. Apart from that, this is a pretty solid all-around keyboard. Anyway, that's it for my review of the Dark Flash GD100, and as always, thanks for watching and see you guys in the next one.